You've probably never heard of an anime that's as inherently cursed as Minky Momo is, and I'm not just talking about weird plot points or just strange animation occurrences. While it does have its fair share of that, I'm talking about an anime that has a fundamental evil energy surrounding it. A vibe so bad that there's a rumor that when this anime aired, it caused not one, not two, but 5 earthquakes. And yeah, it may very well be the basis of the isekai truck trend. So let's get straight into the history. What is Minky Momo? Magical Princess Minky Momo is a 1982 animation series in the magical girl genre, a genre that was first conceived in the mid-19th century with various mangas using the genre, although it wouldn't be known as that until a few decades later, because there weren't enough shows to definitively draw a trend between them. After all, a show that's centered around a girl who has magic is a pretty wide margin to clear. Technically, Sally the Witch by Toei Animation in 1966 would be considered the first magical girl anime, although, like I said, it's not exactly a high bar to clear, as I guess you could make a case for any show that features a female lead with supernatural elements as technically a part of it. I would say the magical girl genre actually holds different subgenres with different themes and concepts to each other, like the magical warrior, the cute witch, magic princess, magic idol, and the dark reality. You can probably infer by each of these what the themes were. For example, the magical warrior shows tended to feature villains or some sort of battles with the power scale that the girls will use. Although, among these subgenres, I do have to conclude that the magical warrior is more or less the leading popular one, and with anime such as Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, and the Precure series using this as a general basis for their show structure. However, that's not to say that animes often mix and match these themes, as for example, many of them take the cute witch subgenre, which features the double life aspect of girls living an ordinary life with magical powers. Even to this day, magical girl animes are a very popular genre, and while there's a lot I could say to justify that, I'll just settle with saying that the simple concept and nature would be great for younger girls, especially since the magical warrior subgenre is popular. It's also a way for females to be portrayed as not only cute, but powerful and strong in media. So where does Minky Momo fit into this? Well, Minky Momo is in the magical princess category. The show structure features Momo, a magic princess whose job it is to restore dreams. The show is a non-serialized story with each episode having a self-contained plot. The show is from the 1980s, a time in which the genre was about to peak a decade later, so you can actually make a strong case for saying that this anime paved the way for the likes of Sailor Moon. In fact, Minky Momo is definitively one of the first magical girl anime trailblazers to introduce concepts like the magical animal companions. And while it wasn't the first one to do so, it also popularized a lot of magical girl stereotype trends, such as magical jewelry that enables powers, and of course, the famous magical girl transformations. The only thing that really impedes Minky Momo from being the standout magical girl anime of the decade is simply the fact that there was a rival show who was pretty much just as popular, Magical Angel Creamy Mammy. And while Creamy Mammy is also a topic on its own with such bizarre occurrences as the $1 million giant dinosaur statue in Shinjuku, that's also another can of worms I'm not getting into today. So what exactly is magical girl Minky Momo? Minky Momo is a magical princess from the Land of Dreams, Fenari Narsa. Although the Land of Dreams once resided next to Earth, because humans have become so hopeless, Fenari Narsa has drifted away, and now the king and queen, Momo's parents, have decided to send their daughter so that they can restore the hopes and dreams to bring the two worlds together again. So Momo arrives on Earth with 4 of her magic-talking animal companions: Sinbok, Mocha, Kajira, and Pipis. Sinbok, Mocha, Kajira, and Pipple. She then magically gaslights a single couple into believing that she's their daughter, and from that point on, lives in their pet shop, doing daily antics, restoring people's dreams and such. Her main power is being able to use her magical pendant to transform into an adult version of herself and execute any job, which on paper sounds a little weird, but I guess in practice it was a good way to expose kids to different types of jobs through the show. So enough about this history stuff. What exactly is the deal with this show, and how does everything go horribly wrong? Well, for as much as I hyped up this show as one of the trend-setting, most popular shows of the decade, it really wasn't doing well financially, and that's not to shame the show. Its ratings were pretty good, and like I said, it was one of the most popular shows in the genre at the time. It's just that animated shows back in the 1980s didn't have the best grasp on how to actually monetize themselves in a productive fashion. Even today, the animation industry is suffering with monetization issues and how to go about making animated shows in not only a profitable, but also beneficial fashion for those who watch and those who create said shows. So, back in the 1980s, when Minky Momo was around, the working solution was to make a heck ton of merchandise. You could even make a case arguing that Minky Momo was made more for the merchandise than it was for the actual integrity of the show. Just to really illustrate some of the sheer insanity of some of this merch, we have a music box that's shaped like a crown that also goes for about $700 now, a typewriter that's branded with Minky Momo's face, a popcorn maker, a really cursed Kajira grabby toy that looks like he's in immense pain, another Kajira toy but he's a hole puncher now, and my personal favorite, an entire Minky Momo game on the Famicom, complete with a pink cartridge. And the reason it's my favorite is because you play as Momo and going around solving people's problems. And one of them is where she has a 30-second magical girl transformation scene and turns into a fucking fast food employee. If you could put her face on it, they sold it. The show was basically codependent on two companies, the anime studio making, writing, and animating the television show, and then the toy company that was paying for the show to be made. Big surprise, a lot of Minky Momo merch did not sell well. In fact, it sold so poorly that the merchandise company that was supposed to be sponsoring the anime just stopped paying the animation studio at some point. Now, this put the animation studio between a rock and a hard place. Contractually, they needed to finish the anime, but also the sponsor just kind of left and never came back. It would look bad if they broke their contract and didn't finish the season, even if the sponsor didn't hold up their end of the bargain, so they needed to finish the show, but also weren't really happy with the current situation. Sending a subtle message to the showrunners through a brutal change will surely accomplish that. So, led by Takeshi Shudo, the legend of a writer, the studio made episode 45 of Minky Momo. It was a fairly dark episode in tone, at least compared to the normal Minky Momo episodes. Its ending left the series with an uncertain fate, which would be the only times in the series in which a continuous change would occur, as at the very end they shatter Minky Momo's magical girl pendant, thereby robbing her of all magical power. Surely something like this would grab the sponsor's attention, right? You can see where this is going. The sponsors indeed did not have any reaction, so they took it one step further. At the very start of episode 46, they just go wild and have Momo get run over by a truck. Just to pour salt in the wound, the truck that hit her was full of different toys from the sponsor's company. Of course, it wasn't permanent. At the end of the episode, they reincarnate Momo as her parents' real daughter, and she regains her powers, and has a vision of the future when she's able to restore Earth's dreams and wishes so that her world, Fenari Narsa, can return. What a great note to end the episode on. It got a little dark in the beginning, but I bet that would be enough to send a little message to their sponsor. Yeah, so the rumor that spread around was that the dark energy from this episode was so strong that it seeped into reality, and directly after the episode aired, several prefectures in Japan in which the show got aired in got hit with 5 consecutive earthquakes. Although luckily these seemed to be very mild earthquakes, with none of them even causing any substantial damage and no deaths being reported. Although it's a little morbidly coincidental, there's no way this could actually be the reason why Minky Momo is entirely referred to as cursed, can it? After all, it was just a harmless set of quakes, nothing too serious. Well, maybe if we stretch it, Japanese people do sort of link the word Momo or peach to bad luck in the Japanese language. A new segment even referred to these earthquakes and Minky Momo's show and name as a bad omen. Well, regardless of all of that, Minky Momo did have a completely normal series end. There's not many reports on the news of what actually happened with the sponsor situation, but I guess it must have been sorted out and the sponsor must have pulled it together after that stunt, because Minky Momo would go on to complete 64 total episodes without another hitch. So yeah, the series ended and absolutely nothing happened. Thanks to my Patreons listed Yeah, so the rumor has it that when the very last episode of Minky Momo aired the same day, May 26, 1983, another earthquake hit Japan. This one was more serious than the last set. Apparently about 100 people died from the earthquake and then the ensuing tsunami. Okay, fine, once is a coincidence, twice is still a coincidence. Japan is no stranger to urban legends based on children media. Actually, Lavender Town may very likely be considered one of the first creepypastas. Lavender Town is an area in the Pokemon games where a giant tower full of graves is located. So it's only natural that the song it's paired with would be equally disturbing? Correct. The song was so unsettling that many people recount stories of how uncomfortable or perturbed they felt when listening to it. However, a Western rumor that spread around was that when the game was first released, the song featured painful frequencies that only children could pick up. Several variations of the story exist today, some more unbelievable, like the song calls children to commit you-know-what, and something slightly more believable but still fictional, like the frequency causing headaches or pain, occasionally getting so bad that they need to be taken to hospitals for doctor's visits. But of course, these rumors are nothing but superstition, so in Minky Momo's case, it's hard to say if it's just a stretched set of coincidences that became an urban legend like Lavender Town or not. January 17th, 1995, magical princess Minky Momo, due to very popular demand, has returned to Japanese television and is being rebroadcasted. They successfully got through all the other episodes, including the infamous truck one without incident, and they have once again arrived at the final episode. The Great Hanshin Earthquake hits Kobe, Japan with a magnitude of 7.2. About 6,000 people died, and this one is verifiably the same date as Minky Momo's rebroadcast. To be honest, I don't want to make light or make crazy conspiracy theories over a real disaster that ended many lives, so whether you believe in the superstition or not, let's move on. Takeshi Shudo, the guy who wrote the truck scene, said he would be glad to write a third Minky Momo series in sort of a reboot if he had the chance. And while it looks like there was definitely some sort of plans for a Minky Momo reboot at some point in time, it's definitely dead in the water since Shudo unfortunately passed away in 2010 of lung failure. While his death is undeniably unfortunate, perhaps he bore the sins and spared the earth of whatever tragedy was to befall when Minky Momo returned to this mortal realm. Not to make it seem like Minky Momo was his only success. In fact, Shudo was probably even more famously known as he would work on the Pokemon anime as well. Like, after the truck thing, after he kills a child with a car on children's television, he's hired to work on one of the biggest TV series in the world. Man was a legend. And before someone asks, no, he did not have a hand in the infamous seizure-causing Porygon episode. However, I do think he wrote some of the most memorable and best Pokemon episodes in the earlier seasons, being credited as writing episodes such as Go West, Young Meowth, the episode about Meowth's backstory, and then Charizard's Burning Ambitions, the episode where Ash leaves his Charizard to train and get stronger. Back on the topic of Minky Momo, it's somewhat become lost media, most especially the English dub, where there's only a dubious amount of footage from it. To be completely honest, I'm not even sure it exists at this point. Apparently, someone found a listing for it on Amazon Prime, but it was removed before anyone even noticed it was there. Who knows, maybe it's a time traveler trying to prevent a cataclysmic world-ending event from occurring. Or more likely, it's because Harmony Gold, the company that was in charge of dubbing and distributing the anime out of Japan, did such a poor job the show barely got around, and the bits that did get around are either of low quality and most even lost to time. There's a ton of lost media that has to do with Minky Momo, but that's not my expertise. So let's talk about the influences on Minky Momo and the whole stunt that the animation studio pulled. The truck thing. Let's talk about the truck thing. While I'm not gonna painstakingly look through every single example of a use of a truck to kill in Japanese media, I can at least try and see if other internet detectives have. The first and easiest assumptions that you can make is that it needs to be something of large importance, or at least something popular enough to affect the pop culture at the time. The general consensus that most people come to is that the first major uses was in 1990 when the manga Yu Yu Hakusho came out, an anime about the main character getting hit by a car while trying to save a child, and then getting contracted to solve case about ghosts and apparitions. It's still a pretty popular anime and manga, and it's definitely considered one of the classics, so it may be a strong reason to conclude as the one that started the truck trend. Or maybe not, because Yu Yu Hakusho was only animated in 1992, which is just under a decade too late for the Minky Momo thing. It's pretty safe to say that Minky Momo was at least one of the reasons why anime culture has so much to do with this car trend, despite Japan itself not really having that much emphasis on motorways, especially when you think about places like America. Plus, there had to be a lot of shock factor that had to do with the children's television show and that dark twist. Just to be safe, I even dug up this Japanese thread that discusses the same thing, and they also come to the same conclusions. So yes, Minky Momo may very well be the inciting source of the infamous isekai truck trend. So I'm Minky Milo, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks to my Patreons listed here, and special thanks to Caden Workman, Kig1056, and Josurogo. Thanks!